Hi there, good noon. So I hope that you have started your CAT 23 preparation in all earnest. And I'm saying CAT because when I say CAT, I actually mean B school exams. The problem with thinking about just the CAT is that at times all the other entrance exams get ignored until it is too late. At BYJU'S exam prep, we are committed to ensure that it does not go on to become too late for you for any of these exams. So I welcome you to BYJU'S exam prep channel dedicated to your success as an MBA aspirant. And my name is Vikrant. I'm your personal coach on this channel where I pitch in with all things related to English and communication skills. I occasionally also talk about the psychological aspects of preparation. So if you have any question, any concern along these lines, this is the right time to drop those in the chat box down below so that I can help you with that. So the topic that we plan to talk about today is importance of grammar. Now, unfortunately, grammar happens to be one of those areas that a lot of us end up ignoring. We ignore it because it is no longer being asked in the CAT. I say no longer because yes, there was a time when even the CAT exam used to have a lot of grammar. It's just that of late, when I talk about the last decade or so, grammar has fallen out of favor. But otherwise, it is very much a part of every other B school exam. So why should you bother about studying grammar? At the end of the day, YOLO, you have only one life. You're preparing for this exam. You already have a lot of other things to do. So why should you carve out some time for grammar on your calendar every day? The reason is very straightforward. You get these direct grammar based questions in every exam other than the CAT. And I'm sure CAT is not the only exam you are thinking of writing. And in case you do, I would insist that you go ahead and write some more exams. How about that? You would want to get into XLRI, right? Does that have grammar questions? Yes. How about IIFT? Grammar questions? Yes. SNAP asks you grammar questions. NMAT asks you grammar question. TISNET has grammar questions. Maharashtra MBA CET has grammar questions. And in all of these exams, you'd find a varying number. So there are times when you get 2 questions, 4 questions, 5 questions, 7 questions. So normally I'd say that you should expect 5 to 7 questions for sure. The last exam that I sat for was Maharashtra CET, which happened very recently. Remember, 25th and 26th of the last month. And in this paper, I wrote slot 4. In my slot, there were 12 grammar questions. 7 of these 12 were focused on error identification, whereas the other 5 happened to be questions that test your understanding of foundational grammar. Now, you would not want to miss out on all of these other amazing colleges merely because you did not spend time on grammar. So, hi Harshad, hi Santosh. And then that's just one reason, of course. Apart from it, you notice it is useful in answering paragraph based questions. So particularly these 2 question types. Okay, so when we talk about para jumbles and when we talk about para completion, especially for these 2, we solve these questions on the basis of the various clues that are found in that paragraph. And one of the clues that you can rely on is grammar. So I remember solving this question, I think last week. It was a para completion question where 2 options turned out to be very close for a lot of people who were solving that. But the moment I saw it, they were not close for me because the paragraph demanded simple past tense, whereas one of those sentences, one of those 2 confusing options actually had simple present tense. So a very simple, very subtle difference. If you know the usage of simple present and simple past respectively, it was very easy for us to answer. And these are questions that do get asked very frequently in the exam. So grammar based questions. They can be linked with pronouns, linked with tenses, all of that comes in very, very handy. And it is not about just the VA. This is something that also makes you better at reading comprehension. See, we may not think of it this way, but then then let's think together. What is the basic element of a language? If I ask you for the basic foundational element of a language, what would you say it is? Yogita says, I have great antipathy in, to, against, for. I think we normally use towards, but in this case, Yogita, we can use for. But even that will be incorrect. I think there is some problem with the design of the question here. Should be towards. So, what is the basic element of a language? Let's think. A lot of us feel that the basic element of a language is a word. Some people may think it is an alphabet, but that is not true. At the end of the day, the purpose of a language is to communicate. So can I pick up some words and arrange them in a random order? Just create a pile of words. वर्ड उठाए 5, 6, 7, 10 ढेरी बना दी, सामने वाले को पकड़ा दिया. यार, will that allow us to express ourselves? Will that allow us to communicate? No. If you want meaning to happen, you need to arrange those words in a specific sequence. Every word goes at this one precise place within the sentence, and that is something that you learn with the help of grammar. So the basic element of a sentence, the point where communication starts happening, is a sentence. And sentence requires you to have understanding of syntax. That is something that you learn from grammar. Then when you have that understanding, you would notice that even the trickier sentences become easy to understand because you know about the various components. Remember, in a sentence, you have a subject, a predicate, an object, a phrase, a clause. When you have that understanding, you can deconstruct an entire sentence which is difficult to understand and then work your way up from there. For example, I told you that the last exam that I sat for was Maharashtra CET. So in my slot, there was a passage, and here is the first paragraph of that passage. This is the first paragraph. And trust me, it is just one sentence, an entire paragraph. There are just one sentence. I'm giving you 20 seconds to read it, and then you tell me whether it is easy to understand or not. Go ahead. So you see, there are times when we get challenging passages. One of the ways in which challenge can come from is a very long, convoluted sentence. So if you have this ability to break it down into smaller parts, it's then that you'd find it easy. So let's see. Now let us turn back to inquire whether X and Y is all that capitalism can do. Let's just pause here. Let us turn back to inquire whether X and Y is all that capitalism can do. So you know what capitalism is? Private ownership of property, profit motive, right? So we're saying that, okay, are these the only two things that capitalism can do? Which two things? Number one, sending a capital abroad. Earn money here, send your profits outside. And consenting to be taxed to pay emigration fares. that, okay, tax us and charge us money for what? Emigration. Emigration is sending somebody out of the country to get rid of the women and men who are left without employment in consequence. So you've sent your profits abroad, which means you're not expanding your business, which means you're not generating more jobs. So in such a scenario, you'll have unemployment. But then you say that, hey, okay, I'm sending my profits abroad, but then tax me to send these people abroad as well. So are these the only two things that capitalism can do? But in which situation? That's where this next part comes into picture. This is an adverbial clause. When our employers, and you notice this is an adjective clause, it's an addition, you can always add it later. When our employers are themselves capitalists, and when our employers find that they can sell no more of their goods at a profit or indeed at all in their own country. So you notice I've just broken it down into 2-3 different parts, and I know what each one of these parts is. There is a very large adverbial clause. Within that adverbial clause, I see an adjective clause. Because I know these things, I am able to separate them, and then I can piece all of these back together. But can you? You can do that only if you are aware of all of these various components, and that is why it is important for us to enhance our understanding of grammar. So obviously, now that we know that we should enhance our understanding of grammar, the question in our mind would be that, okay, hey, so what should I study? What am I supposed to really look at? So let me give you the syllabus first. So your grammar book basically consists of two things. One of those two things is the various parts of speech. So you remember there are 8 of these in traditional grammar and 9 of these in modern grammar. So what are these 8 parts of speech? We are halfway through, okay? Noun, pronoun, adjective, verb. What else are we left with? There you go. Adverbs, conjunctions, a very important area, prepositions, and then a not so important area, interjections. So you are supposed to know these 8 things. So one major chunk of your grammar book is parts of speech, that essentially talks about these 8 things. And the other major chunk of your grammar book is elements of sentence. So you need to know what a sentence is, and then different components of a sentence, and there are 5 of those. So subject and predicate. Then you remember something called an object. How about phrase and clause along with their types? So these two happen to be the 2 major areas. And then from the exam perspective, there are a couple of extra things that are a combination item. They cannot be put under one of these individual categories. You need to combine multiple categories in order to arrive at your answer. And those combination categories are something called subject-verb agreement, very popular in the Indian aptitude exams. And the other one is called parallelism, not super popular. But then there are a couple of exams which are actually partial to it. So if you're writing XAT, I'd rather suggest that you become good at parallelism. You're thinking of GMAT? Hell yeah, absolutely. It is a very important area. So these are the things that I want you to actually go through. Now, you may look at these and say, come on, that's it. I just need to study nouns, pronouns. Will that help? So let us see. So the truth is, there are different question types that come in the exam. So there are some question types which I call the foundation questions. So in these questions, the examiner will give us a sentence with some part underlined, and he'd ask us to label it. So those labels test your understanding of grammar in general. So for example, they'd ask you to tell them whether it is a noun or a pronoun, or an adjective or adverb, or if you make it a little more tough, then they'd ask you things like, hey, tell us whether it is a possessive adjective or a possessive pronoun, right? Whether it is a relative pronoun or a demonstrative adjective. Such things. And then taking it even further, they may actually ask you whether it is an adverbial clause or an adjective clause or a noun clause. So you are supposed to know about these basics. And some exams like SNAP at times can also ask you for the types of sentences. So that's one part. Then You have your standard error identification questions where the examiner can give you a single sentence which has an error and you may need to spot it. Or the examiner may give you a question where the same idea is captured using 4 or 5 different sentences, right? And one of them is the grammatically correct version, and that's the one that you're usually supposed to pick up. Or there are these questions where they give you 4 different sentences altogether. You are supposed to choose the ones which are either correct or incorrect. And then you also get quite a few fill in the blank questions that are based on grammar. So it may test your ability to pick up the right preposition or the right form of the given word, etc. And let us go ahead and sample some of these question types then. Let's go ahead and have a look at it. I will give you a broad sweep. I'll ensure that you do get exposed to questions belonging to fairly diverse range of concepts today so that you know what to expect in the exam and what kind of preparation you are supposed to initiate from today on. So let's begin. So here is the first one. Ready? The question is on your screen. This asks you to figure out the part of speech of the underlined word, and your time for it starts now. So I hope you've thought it through, and the correct answer here for this particular question is option C. It is a preposition. Okay, so inside is a preposition. What is a preposition? Preposition. These are words that are put before a noun or a pronoun. So you see this noun? And they establish a relationship between that noun and the rest of the sentence. So it can be a relationship of space, the relationship of time. It can also be some other abstract logical relationship, right? So this one right here is a preposition. It is not an adjective. Adjectives describe a noun. They give you the quality of a noun. They tell you more about a noun or a pronoun. Inside does not do that here. So C is your answer. And here is your next question, which is tougher. It is more challenging. It requires a better, deeper understanding of grammar, but give it a shot. कौन सा negative marking? अपना क्या जा रहा है? Attempt करो खुल के. And that will ensure that you go ahead and learn something from it. Okay, so the correct answer here is A. Now, what is an adverb supposed to do? An adverb adds something to the meaning of a verb or an adjective or another adverb. Okay, so here we are supposed to give something, but how are we supposed to give it? As quickly as possible. So this is a part that adds something to the verb give, and that is why it is an adverb. Now the other element of the answer is phrase. So what is a phrase? A phrase is a group of words which is part of a sentence and it does not make complete sense. And what do we mean by it does not make complete sense? It does not have a subject and a verb, or you can say a subject and a predicate. So that is what makes it a phrase. But at some level, I tried to keep it easy because I did not give you any other option that said that it is an adverb. Okay, and that is why the answer is A. But then the moment you read it, and all of these questions do get asked in exams like SNAP, IFT, Maharashtra CET, etc. Okay, so make sure that you do not ignore this area. Now let us dive into error identification a bit. So here is a question for you on your screen. You have been given a sentence divided into 4 parts. One of these 4 parts has an error and your time. So you're supposed to identify that error and mark that as your answer, and your time starts now. Okay, so this is a question that was based on nouns. Specifically speaking, within nouns, we have something called a compound noun. And in compound noun, people face this problem of something called irregular plurals. So let's decode these ones. Noun is the name of a person, place, animal, thing, idea. Compound nouns are those nouns that are made up by combining multiple words, right? So for example, when you say website, when you say blackberry, when you say table lamp, these are all compound nouns. And then you have something called an irregular plural. So normally when we create a plural from a noun in English, we add an S or an ES or an IES. These are called regular plurals. But then you have these plurals that go beyond these types. For example, what is the plural of radius? Radii. Remember? So that is an irregular plural. So we had a compound noun here, and the compound noun was daughter-in-law. What is the plural of daughter-in-law? Well, the plural of daughter-in-law is, and notice this carefully, daughters-in-law. But as you can see, the S has been placed incorrectly in this sentence. And that's the error here. And therefore, the correct answer should be option C. So, mothers-in-law, brothers-in-law, daughters-in-law. We do not put S at the end. So, C it is. Here is the next question for you on your screen. And your time starts now. Okay, so this is a question that tests our understanding of something called the possessive case of a noun. So what is possessive case? So you remember there are times when we add an apostrophe S with a noun to show possession, ownership, or relation, right? For example, when I say this is Ravi's house. So this apostrophe S right here, that's the possessive case of a noun. It shows possession, ownership, or relationship. Now, in this sentence, you see this possessive, Rakesh's and Mukesh's. But then the problem is that we are talking about just one dog. We are also talking about just one house. This tells us that the dog is in the joint ownership of Rakesh and Mukesh. So Rakesh and Mukesh, both of them together possess that dog. So whenever there is a joint ownership, we add apostrophe S only with the last noun and not with all the nouns. So here, this apostrophe S after Rakesh should as a result be removed. It should be Rakesh and Mukesh's dog. So when it is not joint ownership, when the ownership is individual, it's only then that you put apostrophe S with all the nouns. Otherwise, you put it only with the last noun, and that is why our answer here should be option A. And don't get intimidated. I am giving you a very, very pithy idea of the concept involved. You can go ahead and read up more on this from your grammar book, or maybe you can drop in these queries, these questions to me later, and we can talk about these. Okay. Here is the next one. Question number 5 on your screen. Pick up the grammatical error and your time starts now. Okay, let me just fix it. They have. So there you go. This is a question that relies on your understanding of two concepts, a particular type of pronoun and its application for subject-verb agreement. So here, when I look at this part, you notice these square brackets that I've written. The subject here is neither. Now, when neither is used as a standalone entity, there is no nor after it, there is no noun after it, then neither is a pronoun. And as a pronoun, it is always singular. Whenever either or neither are used as the subject in a sentence, as pronouns, they're always singular. And that is why this verb here should also be singular. And you know, in simple present tense, a singular verb is supposed to have an S or an ES placed after. So contain was wrong. It should have been contains, neither of which contains any useful suggestions. And that is why our answer should be C. Some of us thought D is wrong. If you can tell me what you found wrong, then I can actually give you a very, very specific answer that addresses your concern and enhances your understanding. So try that. Here is the next one. Question number 6 on your screen, and the time starts now. There you go. So this question tests your understanding of something called reciprocal pronouns. So what is reciprocation? Give and take. You love somebody, that person also loves you. So your love is being reciprocated. One-sided nahi raha, ab two-sided ho gaya. So reciprocal pronouns show reciprocation, and there are two pronouns that we use for it. One is each other and the other one is one another. What is the difference between the two? Each other is used to show reciprocation between two, whereas one another is used to show reciprocation among more than two. So here we have two families, but we are using one another. That is incorrect. It should have been each other, and that is why our answer for this question should be option D. Ashmita also says anymore is a repetition. You can say that, although I'd say in this sentence it is basically emphasizing. I'm not in touch with him anymore. Basically tells you, I used to be in touch earlier, but then. So it can also be used as an emphasizer and intensifier occasionally. But I think the answer will still remain the same, D. So let's move over to the next question. Question number 7 on your screen, and your time starts now. I can give you a hint. tenses. It somehow deals with tenses. Okay, Imam, I see that. Now, you notice this, since his application to his dream college got rejected. So there is a particular tense which is known as perfect continuous tense. When do we use it? It talks about something that started in the past, is going on even now. No, and it tells you either the point of time at which this activity started, in which case we use since, or it gives you the duration for which the activity has been going on, in which case we use for. So whenever you see this structure, you know that you're supposed to use perfect continuous. But unfortunately, this sentence ends up using simple past. So instead of was, let's make it had been, past perfect continuous. So I knew how disheartened Akshay had been since his application to his dream college got rejected. And that is why our answer here should be option B. So tenses, very important area for all of us, even for our daily life. I mean, the errors of tenses are like conspicuous errors in a day-to-day life. I hope that you would master this area soon. Here is the next one on the screen for you, and your time starts now. Once again, hint, we are dealing with tenses. If you know your tenses well, along with the usage, you can figure out the error here. This time around, to make it tough, I also added no error. So see, now let me tell you something. There is something called past perfect tense. When do we use it? So there are times when you have two completed actions, right? Two completed actions. One of these happened earlier and the other one happened later. You can also say one of these happened first and the other one happened second, whichever way suits you. So whenever you see two things that happened in the past, one happened first and the other happened later, the one that happened first, the one that happened earlier is stated using the past perfect tense. The one that happened later is stated using the simple past tense. So you notice there are two activities. The car covered a certain number of kilometers, it broke down. Which happened first? Very clearly, because we are using before, we know that this is the earlier or the first action, which means that this part should have been stated using the past perfect tense. Let's fix it. So his car had covered nearly 80,000 kilometers before it broke down. That is why our answer to this question should be option A. Okay, so past perfect. Here is the next one for you on your screen. And your time starts now. Okay, so this is a question that tests our understanding of, simply put, subject-verb agreement. And in every area, you know, particularly in grammar, we do happen to have exceptions, right? So during my childhood, having more than one bathroom in the house were considered a luxury. So this entire part is the subject of the sentence. This is singular, and therefore instead of where, it should have been was. What is subject-verb agreement? If the subject of a sentence is singular, the corresponding verb must also be singular. But then as I can see, all of you have gotten it this right. So we can move over to our next question. Here it is on your screen and your time starts now. Three, two, one, and go. Another question that is based on subject-verb agreement. So this entire part, the one that I've set off in the brackets, square brackets, is your subject. Now, within the subject side of the sentence, you always have a core noun or core nouns. So the core noun that acts as subject here is proceeds. So as a rule, there are two exceptions to it though. As a rule, whatever comes after a preposition is never the subject. Okay, so the subject here is, the core noun here is proceeds. This is the noun that we need to agree our verb with. Now proceeds is plural, but the verb here is singular. So we need to change this is into are, and that fixes it. And that is why our answer to this question should be option C. Okay, so that's why our answer is C. The proceeds are to be given to an NGO. So there are times when your core noun, your subject and the verb may have a lot of other elements coming in between, and those elements can at times confuse us, but that is why you are supposed to enhance your understanding of the different elements of sentence. Here is, okay, bonus marks for somebody who can tell me what this is. From this concert, if you were to label it, what will you call it? Which part of speech will this be? So you notice it is a group of words, it is part of a sentence. Does it have its own subject, its own predicate? No. So this is a phrase. But then what does it do? Which proceeds? The proceeds from this concert. So it also tells you a little more about a noun. And therefore, because it describes a noun, tells you more about a noun, you also know that it is an adjective. We don't call it adjective, okay? The D here is silent, adjective. So it's a phrase, it acts as an adjective, therefore what do we call it? We call it an adjective phrase. Here comes the next question on your screen and your time starts now. Right? So measurement in or measurement of. So there was a wrong preposition that was used here, and that is why option C should be marked as our answer. So I told you, remember, prepositions is a very important area, and unfortunately there are no logic based things to it. I mean, there are some aspects where logic can be used, but then a large chunk of preposition based questions come from this concept called fixed prepositions. So certain nouns, certain verbs, certain adjectives are followed by a certain preposition. There is no logic here. So you just need to go ahead and know this. And let me give you one more question that tests your understanding of prepositions. Here it is on your screen and your time starts now. Ooh, very subtle. This is a difficult question. Let us see if you get it. This is right. Framing of guidelines. He will work towards framing of guidelines. You don't work towards framing guidelines, you work towards framing of those guidelines. So there was a preposition missing from part B. It is so subtle that I won't begrudge it if you miss out on this. Everything else in this sentence is absolutely all right, and that is why our answer should be B. Now, some of you may wonder that, oh, I'm not getting these right. What is this? And this is challenging, dude. Do not become disheartened. Grammar is easy. All it requires is consistent effort. If you can show up every day for the next 100 days, give some time to grammar for the next 100 days, you will definitely make an amazing progress in grammar. Or as they say, the way to get started is to quit talking and begin doing. So start doing it, and pretty soon you'd see this amazing change. Do you want to practice more such questions? Yes? Then we put a section-wise quiz every day on our app. So if you haven't installed it yet, do it at the earliest. Okay, go to Play Store or App Store, and then type BYJU'S Exam Prep. You'd get this app, and you can register and then start attempting these quizzes for absolutely free. Not only that, we are also starting our new series from 6th of April, where we'll take you through 500 most expected CAT questions, where we mimic the difficulty level and the variety that you are supposed to be ready for. So make sure that you're subscribed to this channel. Otherwise, who knows, you may miss out on it. यार जब YouTube खोलते हैं कोई ना कोई इंटरेस्टिंग शॉर्ट दिख ही जाता है, फिर अपन स्क्रॉल करने लग जाते हैं. सब्सक्राइब करोगे, बेल आइकन प्रेस करोगे, तो बाय डिजाइन ये दिखेगा तुम्हें, और ये तुम्हें तुम्हारे सपनों के पास लेकर के जाएगा. और ऐसे ही सपने एक साल पहले कुछ और लोगों ने देखे थे. They joined us and we helped them realize their dreams. It's just a small sample of people who prepared with us and went on to score amazingly great scores, amazingly good percentiles. If you want to be one of these, we have our batches open for our comprehensive program. And I'm not just saying comprehensive. Look at the features, yaar. क्या क्या नहीं है भाई, क्या क्या नहीं है, सब तो है. हाँ, so make sure that you do benefit from it. And we also have this another fabulous session coming on 4th of April, which will help you prepare for CAT better by managing your job and your college, in case that's something that bothers you. So do register for it. It will happen a day after tomorrow on our app, and we are wherever you are. So make sure that you do follow us. So if this session was useful, don't forget to like, share and subscribe. Now let me see what else we have here. Quite a few of you are CMAT aspirants. Okay, so you're saying, how can I give 100 days? Yeah, look at the session title. This is a session meant for people who are preparing for CAT 23. But then the truth is, even if you have just 2 days, I mean, forget 7. If you have 2 days, in those 2 days, you can do the job worth 2 days. So what do? You pick up high priority areas. Focus more on, say, tenses. Focus more on pronouns, focus more on subject-verb agreement. Just your goal should be to at least revise these 3 areas thoroughly before you turn up for the exam. And then see, is CMAT on 9th of April? भाई देख, कल तक तो मुझे पता था नहीं. हाँ, so now that you've said it, I will look it up and I'll check. भाई, anybody from my team who's here, who's listening in, if you can Google and let us know, then maybe that'd be amazing. So this is यार, ये CMAT यार बड़ा confuse कर देते हैं यार ये लोग. These guys are, it's not the right way of conducting exams, that you're so close and you do not even know whether the exam will happen or not. I think these should be managed in a better way, but I think majority of the exams that are conducted are definitely managed rather professionally. We have 1 or 2 outliers. But those of you writing CMAT, all the best, and we definitely help you for CMAT as well. The moment the date is confirmed, I think we can help you revise those areas that you're most concerned about. तो नीचे chat box में यार बता दो तुमको CMAT में कौन से areas में ज़्यादा fight हो रही है, अपन उनके लिए session तैयार कर देंगे. We'll help you with those, right? So until I see you next, stay safe, stay focused, stay in touch, keep letting us know what you want, and we deliver. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Until I see you next, have a great time.